Good morning. Welcome to Stepping Up Kosher for this week, our part 2 of non-Jewish foods. And this week we are going to be talking about non-Jewish milk and non-Jewish wine. All right, last week we spoke about baking by a non-Jew and cooking by a non-Jew. And today we are going to be talking about non-Jewish milk and non-Jewish wine. All right, so let's start with milk, shall we? Asur Chachamim, our sages prohibited to drink milk that was milked by a non-Jew because of the worry that he may have mixed into it milk from a non-kosher animal. So let's back up a second. As you may remember, just as we are prohibited from eating anything that is non-kosher, we are also prohibited anything that is a product of a non-kosher animal, right? So just like you cannot eat a pig, you also cannot eat pig's milk, right? Now, because when a non-Jew is going to be doing the milking process on a farm, and there's cows, and there's milks, and there's cows, and there's pigs, and there's goats, and we don't know if maybe he mixed in a non-kosher product, a non-kosher milk, together with the kosher milk, and you would not know. So therefore, we are not allowed to drink milk that is milked by a non-Jew. The exception to that rule is that if a Jew is present as the non-Jew is milking the animal, in other words, the employees don't all need to be Jewish, but as long as there's Jewish oversight, I always struggle with that word oversight. Somehow it means when you're looking something over and when you forgot to look something over, right? There's an oversight means that you didn't. So here we mean obviously that it is being overseen by a Jew, and that is the prohibition of milk of a non-Jew. Okay, now let's get into some of the details. Let's say you have chalav akum, which means milk that was certainly milked by a non-Jew, and you then use that product, maybe you didn't know, maybe for whatever reason, you use that product in order to cook in your vessels. This is an important detail. Why do I say it's an important detail? Because there is a prohibition. You're not allowed to even use the vessels if you used milk inside of it. This does not apply to all the laws of kosher, especially not to some of the stringencies that we've been discussing recently. Mm-hmm. So for example, last week when we discussed bishul akum, which means cooking by a non-Jew, we said, that when it comes to a non-Jew who cooked in the vessels of a Jew, and he cooked kosher products, but remember, cooking by a non-Jew is not allowed. So then we said it does make those vessels need to be kosherized, let's call it, right? But the same thing does not apply to an oven. If an oven was used, you don't need to kosherize it. I should clarify what I'm saying. For baking, if it was a kosher material that was baked, then you don't necessarily need to kosherize that oven. You might need to give it some time before you switch back. And there's other things like this as well. Just because something was used for some sort of detail in non-kosher doesn't mean necessarily you have to go and kosherize your vessels. I'll give you the most basic example. The most basic example is shechita. Right? Many people are careful about certain types of shechita. For example, in the Chabad world, they want to have that it should be a Chabad shochet. In the Hasidic world, they might want to have there should be a Hasidic shochet, right, etc., etc. Just because you come to somebody's house and they don't usually use their grill, let's say, for this particular shechita that you like, doesn't mean that it's not kosher. It's very kosher, right? It's just not up to your standards. So you can still use that vessel, you can still use that grill, no problem. When it comes to chalav akum, this is something that's very important to recognize. When it comes to non-Jewish milk that was not overseen by a Jew, if you boiled that milk in a pot, that pot is no longer usable for your kosher products and your kosher milk and your chalav Yisrael that was overlooked by a Jew, etc., etc. Okay? Everybody on the same page as me? The reason I'm emphasizing this is in order to show how stringent it is. Now, we're not done with non-Jewish milk. There's going to be leniencies, there's going to be details, but let me take questions first. Go ahead, Becky.
My question is, if you get something that's OUD,
yes.
Are you good?
We're not holding it yet. We're going to talk about it in the paragraph or two. Okay? So let's talk about what would allow milk that was milked by a non-Jew, right? So obviously, the most important thing is when it's overseen by a Jew. So you have a Jew who's standing in the background. He sees that the milk and he's overseeing the whole process. So then that allows you to drink it, even though the non-Jew has been the one to milk it. So in other words, there can be a kosher milking plant, and there can be a mashgiach, which means a Jewish supervisor that's walking around making sure that all the milk that's being milked is only from cows. And I don't know that he necessarily needs to see the milk come out of the cow and go into the bottle, right? If there's a whole system, right? I don't know how it works today, but there's milking plants, right? Where the cows are going in here, and there's a whole process to it. And there's no pigs in the vicinity, right? No pigs on the premises. Then as long as the mashgiach is making sure that no other products are coming in, and maybe as I don't know the exact details, that would have been a question for Rabbi Yitzchak Hanoka. who gave the who gave the class. I don't know what the standards are and how it works. Like maybe they have to frisk the employees as they come in to make sure. No, I'm serious. To make sure they don't have any other products on them, and that they might not be mixing them in. But once you have a sterile environment, let's call it a sterile Jewish milk environment, so then you're good to go. And there's a mashgiach that oversees to make sure nothing else is going in. Now, what age do you need to be? You actually do not need to be bar mitzvah, which is interesting. As long as a Jewish boy or a Jewish girl is 9 years old, they are good enough to tell you that this is Chalav Yisrael and good to go. Okay. The big question here, and I think this is what Vicky is referring to, is the FDA. Right? Nancy, you've heard of this before? Okay. What is the FDA? The FDA is the Food and Drug Administration, right? Now, there are governmental agencies which verify, which protect us from certain things. Now, 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, we bashed them. Why? Because we said that the FDA, I don't know if you remember this, you guys remember when we were talking about bugs, we said the FDA has a minimum amount of bugs that are actually allowed in restaurants. You're allowed to have a minimum amount of bugs, and from a Jewish perspective, you're not allowed to have any. Right? So then the FDA certainly is not permitted. But what about if the FDA or any other governmental body that oversees the production of milk, what if somehow they are verifying? They're supervising, and they're giving you their stempel, in English we call it, their stamp of approval, that this milk, have a great day guys, that this milk is only cow's milk. Right? So is that enough or not? So, it turns out that it's not. Okay, because, okay, hold on a second, I should give some background to this. It turns out that there was an allowance from Rabbi Moshe Feinstein that's often taken, there's a leniency from his behalf that's often taken out of context. He was asked, I think it was in the 1960s or 70s or whatever it was, in the very early years of Jews in America, after the war, and when kosher milk was not as accessible as it is today, Chalav Yisrael milk was not as accessible as it is today, he was asked this question. And he said that there is room to allow it if the FDA is approving that it's cow's milk. Now, for context, I believe that you're not allowed, there is no non-kosher milk that's allowed by the FDA. I don't think they let pig's milk into the stores. But certainly if it has an OUD on it, which means it's OU and it's dairy, but it doesn't have the additional label of Chalav Yisrael, of being milked by a Jew, so then it's considered Chalav Stam. And he said this is Chalav Stam, and therefore you're allowed to drink it in places where it's very difficult to get Chalav Yisrael. Unfortunately, many people take this leniency way too out of context. And they use it, and they say, oh, that's it, my lifestyle is that I don't drink Chalav Yisrael. But in today's day and age, when Chalav Yisrael is readily accessible, for example, in a city like Pasadena, you can easily get Chalav Yisrael. You can go to Los Angeles, get like I do, pick up 8 bottles of milk, put 6 of them in your freezer, defrost them one at a time. You're good to go for the next however long it is, depending whether you have children or not. And Chalav Yisrael is easily accessible. Not only that, not only that, even in Pasadena, so there are many Chalav Yisrael products. You cannot get milk, because milk is a fresh item, so that you have to go to Los Angeles for. But for example, in the gas station, here's one example, and you can all go right now after this and check. In the gas station, I think it's a Mobile, on Allen and Colorado, you can get kosher Chalav Yisrael ice cream if you want.
Really?
Yeah. In the freezer, they have kosher Chalav Yisrael ice cream.
Allen in Colorado.
Allen in Colorado, in the gas station. If you'd like to go to Trader Joe's, you can get kosher Chalav Yisrael cheese. You have to just buy the right one. Maybe you can get cheese. You can get feta cheese.
Yeah, I've got
you can get different things that they have. If you go to Costco, you can get kosher Chalav Yisrael. They have these boards that have cheese on them. They have mozzarella shredded cheese. There is so much Chalav Yisrael all over that I cannot believe that leniency of Rabbi Moshe Feinstein would apply. Now, heaven forbid to say that those people that are eating something that's OUD, but it's not Chalav Yisrael, that they're eating non-kosher. Of course they're eating kosher. However, they're not keeping the stringency of Chalav Yisrael. Now, by the way, in the Chabad world, this was never stood for. And by the way, Chabad has struggled with this majorly, as you can imagine, because shluchim going out to Italy in the 1950s, obviously not having any Chalav Yisrael milk unless they go and milk the cow themselves. But the Rebbe always instructed shluchim that our standard is Chalav Yisrael no matter what. Pas Yisrael is a different story. There have been allowances for Pas Yisrael, for shluchim. Again, not today. Today you can get everything online, shipped to your door, no problem. But here's what I want to say. I want to talk about the background for why this is. Okay?
Can you get the milk shipped to your door?
Can you get the milk shipped to your door? I don't know. Possibly. But here's what I want to say. We have it on clear authority from Hasidic sources that when we drink or ingest any sort of food that is not Chalav Yisrael, which means we don't know for sure there was milk bein on Jew. We certainly don't know that there were products, the likelihood is very small that the products have inside of them non-kosher ingredients. But we do know that this was not milked by a Jew. Hold on. Hold that thought.
So that's what Kol Israel means, milked by
That's
Jew.
what Chalav Yisrael, means milked by a Jew or overseen by a Jew. So we have it on good authority that if a Jew ingests milk or products that have milk in them, that is not Chalav Yisrael, it causes to have sveikis and emunah, to have doubt in the belief in God. This is not a physical thing, this is a spiritual thing, this is spiritual health. And that is the source for why you will not find a Chabadnik anywhere on the planet that's telling you, I'm a card-carrying Chabadnik and I don't keep Chalav Yisrael. They will keep Chalav Yisrael, even if it's difficult for them, even if they have to milk the cows themselves, even if they have to go all the way to Los Angeles, which is terrible Mesiras Nefesh. That's self-sacrifice beyond, to battle traffic and go to Los Angeles to go and buy it. For sure, they will do that. They will go all the way there. They will buy only Chalav Yisrael products, and they will not eat any products from the store that have an OUD.
And
Now,
freezes, you said? I never heard
absolutely.
freezing.
Milk can freeze, no problem.
I never heard that.
No problem whatsoever. And it extends its lifespan. Yeah. Milk freezes, no problem. I can tell you this.
And then it's good for
we've been
like
doing
a
it for
week
8
after
years
you
now.
open it? Yeah.
After you open it, yeah, it's good for a week, yeah. And it goes way beyond the due date.
What is the symbol? Chalav Yisrael?
It'll just say Chalav Yisrael. In Hebrew, Chet Lamed Vet Yisrael Yud Sin Resh Aleph Lamed. And in English, it'll say Chalav Yisrael CHOLOV YISROEL, I guess. I don't know. That's Chalav Yisrael. Okay? So that is that. Any questions about Chalav Yisrael, or can we move on to wine? No? Moving along. Okay. Moving on to non-Jewish wine. Biblically, it is prohibited to drink or even to have any sort of benefit from wine that was used, that was, what's the word they used for it? That was a libation for avodah zarah, for idol worship. Why? It says in the Torah, Asher chelev zvachima yochlu yishtu yayin nesechem. That is the verse which says that we are prohibited from drinking any of the wine that was used for idol worship. Now, rabbinically, that's called yayin nesech. Okay, that's a term you might want to be familiar with. Yayin nesech, wine that was a libation. It was a libation for idol worship. Now, you'd be hard pressed to find wine like that, especially in America. I think, right?
You're presumably, as long as it's not a Catholic sacrament.
I was going to say, right, but even then, they sell that in stores. I feel like they buy the wine and then they bring it to the church and then they use it for sacramental wine. Is there an item? Is there a Catholic version of Manischewitz that they sell sacramental wine? I don't think so. Okay, so in America you're pretty safe in this regard. I think I could be wrong. Maybe in other countries you have to be more careful. But that is that. Now let's get to rabbinically, because this is very important. Rabbinically, they have actually prohibited even the drinking of stam yenam, which means stam is a very difficult word to translate to English. It means just, like just wine, like regular wine. Regular wine from a non-Jew, we are prohibited from drinking it, even if it wasn't used and it's not intended to be used and it never will be used and they don't even believe in idol worship, still we're not allowed to drink it. Does anybody want to guess why? This has been the reason behind most of the non-Jewish products we've been talking about the past few weeks. If you think that dinner brings two people close together, wine certainly brings people close together, right? So therefore, in order to avoid intermarriage, wine was prohibited. Okay, now, when it comes to stam yenam, which means this wine that is not for idol worship, but it's just non-kosher wine, it was non-Jewish wine. What's going on? Maybe it's your tummy? Let's see. Okay. So over the did I bring you, Kathy? Okay. So when it comes to stam yenam, which means wine that's just non-Jewish wine, the chachamim, the sages, actually took it one step further, strict wise, and they said not only are you not allowed to drink it, you're not even allowed to enjoy it, not even allowed to have any sort of pleasure from it. And in other words, they basically considered it as if it was already poured for avodah zarah, for idol worship. And therefore, in today's day and age, we're not even allowed to be involved in business. In other words, you cannot open up a wine business where you're going to have a winery, which is not going to be kosher wine, which is not going to be Jewish wine. You're not allowed to open up a business like that and trade in wine like that, because then you're having pleasure from it, you're making profit off of it. And even more than that, the rabbis have made a stringency that even when it comes to kosher wine, if a non-Jew touched it, then it's considered like stam yenam, the same concept. All of these stringencies are all in order to avoid intermarriage. Please hold that thought. I'm going to make a bottle, and I'll be right with you.
I wonder if you can make a loan to a because I used to make loans to non-kosher wineries. I never even thought about that.
Presumably, the answer would be no.
Yeah, but it never even occurred to me.
The difference is that I think you would be allowed to because it's not your. You know
It's
what?
not my money.
It's something
my
I would need to
company.
look into. Yeah, it's not. It's not you lending the money.
We talk to when we get your Chaim Soloveitchik.
Come again?
Dr. Chaim Soloveitchik, because his primary expertise is the medieval Jewish wine trade. And
Okay.
particularly Charles and Shuvos regarding that.
Okay. So you want to know if we're going to get into it?
No, if you want to get into it, he's the person to talk to.
Oh, okay.
That basically is his academic.
I was going to say it sounds like this is beyond the scope of today's class, but okay.
But I have gone to places where I've brought my own wine, like I'm at somebody's house, right? And I don't want to have their non-kosher
So we're talking about that
wine.
right now. Pause. Hold on one second.
Okay.
Okay. So wine that a non-Jew touched, okay, and he knew that there was wine inside, or even if the non-Jew did not touch it specifically, but rather he didn't touch the actual wine. He just moved the bottle or the cup or the glass, and he shook the wine that's inside. That wine becomes prohibited for pleasure by a Jew. Hold on, there's going to be more details. So pause 1 second. I know you have a lot of questions, right?
Yeah.
But if a non-Jew only touched the cup or bottle, but didn't actually move the wine that's inside, or maybe he even touched the wine itself, but maybe the non-Jew didn't even know that it was wine, so then you're allowed to drink and have enjoyment from that wine. Okay. Here's the exceptions to that. Okay. Let's start with the easy one. Wine that is sealed with 2 seals. Have you ever noticed that any kosher wine that you buy has a cork, and then it also has a seal up on top, right?
Right.
Wine that is sealed with 2 seals, if a non-Jew touches it, and by the way, this is a very interesting nuance in this law, which perhaps is beyond the scope of today's lesson to get into all these details. But a Jew who desecrates Shabbat publicly is actually in the same category as a non-Jew with regards to this law. Okay, so that's something to think about. But what we were in the middle of saying, if a non-Jew touches the wine and it was double sealed, so then it's not in the category of prohibited wine. It's fine to drink it or have enjoyment from it because it was double sealed. So,
But
for example,
not if it's open by.
hold on. Give us one step at a time. So, an example of that is going to Ralph's and purchasing a bottle of wine.
Right.
Perfectly allowed because it's double sealed. Okay. Here comes the big one. Yayin mevushal, which means wine that was cooked. All right, and we'll get into what that means in a second. Today there's a whole discussion about whether pasteurized is good enough for cooking and all the different things that they do to wine. It used to be that would lower the quality of the wine, but now they've come up with ways that don't lower the quality of the wine. Anyways, this is without getting into what they do to cook the wine in the wineries, but this is something that's very, very common. In fact, I don't think Ralph sells any wine that's not mevushal. If you take a bottle of wine, you turn it around, look at the back, same place where they tell you that it has a hint of plum and it's good to be paired with steak. On the bottom over there, there'll be a 1 word, mevushal, or 2 words, non-mevushal. Right? And that means cooked. And mevushal wine, right? Which the purpose of it is that it's supposed to lower the quality of the wine. That's the halachic purpose of it. You're allowed to drink it and have enjoyment of it, even if a non-Jew touches it. Why? The reason is because from an idol worship perspective, once wine has been pasteurized, once wine has been cooked, has been heated up, they no longer consider it appropriate for a libation. So therefore it's allowed.
So you're looking for the same mishpucha?
Mevushal. 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 Every wine is non-mevushal until it says the word mevushal on the back of the bottle. Okay, you're looking for that word. Once you see that word, drink it as much as you want with a non-Jew, no problem.
Okay.
I've seen
You've seen that word, right?
Yeah, I didn't
By the
know
way,
that.
fun fact, if you're buying a bottle of wine for a Chabad rabbi, you might want to buy the mevushal one because Chabad rabbi will never serve at his table or at his Chabad house wine that is not mevushal. Why? From circles maybe, but he has all sorts of guests at his table, including non-Jews, including people maybe who are Jewish but they desecrate Shabbos publicly, so they're not holding that stage. So at a Chabad rabbi's table, you will never find wine that is not mevushal. If you do find it, congratulations to you. It means he trusts you very, very much, and he says it's okay to have the non-mevushal wine in there. But the chances of that are very, very low.
So I should look for that.
Yes, we should look for the word mevushal.
See, that's something new.
Okay. Pasteurized wine, there are those that are makil, there are those that are lenient. They say pasteurization is the same as cooking. Okay, this is a much larger conversation. I don't want to get into it. Suffice it to say that for practical purposes, if we buy a bottle of wine in the store and it says mavushal on it, for us that's mavushal. Okay, I'm just teasing your imagination that there's a much larger conversation about whether pasteurization is considered cooking or not. Okay, it's not a conversation for right now. Okay, yes.
Nevushal is cooked.
Yes.
Can we drink wine that's not cooked though?
Yes, we're allowed to.
Kosher.
We're allowed to. It's kosher, as long as it has a kosher symbol on it.
But we can't bring it anywhere.
Really?
Yes, you shouldn't bring it anywhere where there's going to be a non-Jew present. Correct. Let's finish off that thought. So far we've been talking about touching. What about seeing? Right? Wine, which is open, so in other words, it doesn't have that double seal anymore, and a non-Jew saw it. Okay? So here's where we get into one of these differences in halacha. Min hadin, according to the letter of the law, you're allowed to drink it, and there's no prohibition, only with regards to wine that a non-Jew touched. But somebody who wants to be stringent, this is a very, very good place to be stringent, and this is the Hasidic custom, that we should not drink wine even if a non-Jew saw it. And again, that's talking about the wine itself, not the bottle from the outside that was double sealed. If a non-Jew even so much as saw the wine directly exposed to his eyes, then the Hasidic custom, and really anybody who's trying to be stringent about this matter, is not to drink such wine. Okay? And that concludes wine.
Even
1
if
second.
it's-
Thank you all for joining us for Stepping Up Kosher for this week, where we discussed the laws of non-kosher milk and non-kosher wine. We look forward to next week's class where we will discuss the laws of Chadash. Stay tuned.